First, yeah, selling cane. Welcome. Second, yes. Okay, so welcome to the stream, folks. Welcome to the stream. I'm doing, Twitch, of course, TikTok, and Instagram, which is new. So I have to switch between the chats. That's just going to be a necessity. But I'm playing Chrono Trigger. For those of you who don't recognize the game, I'm playing the PlayStation version from Final Fantasy Chronicles, and we're having a good time. I don't remember where I am. I don't have a PlayStation 5 now. Seriously? Chrono Trigger warning, yep. I will probably never play Assassin's Creed 3, I'm afraid. I'm only on episode 3 of Andor season 2. I just haven't had time to really catch up. Do I have a preferred chat? This over Instagram. My preferred chat is the Twitch chat. The Twitch chat is going to be the easiest for me to follow. But I'm going to try to switch between everyone. Especially as it looks like the TikTok chat is taking a while to get going. Though someone on TikTok did ask me if I've seen Blowout, which I have, the Palma film, one of my favorites. What's my favorite material for socks? I buy most of my socks from what's the company called? American Trench, which makes great socks. I just think they're cotton socks. Nothing too fancy, nothing crazy. The AMA yesterday with the Times, I think it went pretty well, all things considered. There was nothing disastrous happen. The bosses liked how it all went, so. They were just testing the waters. So they're probably like, this is actually kind of funny. They had no idea that I streamed. They approached me and they were like, hey, do you want to test out our New York Times? Like, we're going to try streaming. Do you want to test this out? And they were like, oh, here's how it works. Here's how the streaming thing works. And I was like, I do my own streaming. And they had no idea, which I thought was really amusing. Okay, someone in the Instagram chat says this music is the worst in a game. Are you insane? Someone on TikTok is asking me that why didn't I rename the characters? Why would I rename the characters? I don't want to rename the Chrono Trigger characters. Those are their names. But why does Slotkin have such rancid vibes? I don't know. I think this is just the perennial issue with conservative Democrats. Like, it was true of... It was true of, it was true of conservative Democrats after 2010, you know, after those midterms. It's just, as long as I've been following politics, it's been just a demonstrable fact about conservative Democrats that they have rancid vibes and can't seem to figure out how to do anything right. And yeah, you're right. Senate brain is also a thing. You cannot underestimate the power of Senate brain. What does the hat? This is a TikTok question. What does the hat say? The hat says King Arthur baking. I think I angered TikTok Live at some point, and they've just been really unwilling to broadcast my my streams out. Someone on TikTok is asking Senate brain. Senate brain is a colloquial way to refer to how senators develop this like develop these bizarre fixations and notions that are like politically counterproductive, but make sense within the context of the Senate. So for example, a good example is there's this tradition called the blue slip, where if a president nominates someone for a judicial appointment, they're supposed to get approval from the senators from that state, which makes sense in an age of, you know, everyone's friends, but is nonsensical in an era of like partisan contestation, high partisanship, polarization. But there are plenty of senators, Democrats mostly, who insist on holding to the blue slip. They're usually long-serving members, and it's counterproductive, but it's part of the tradition, and that is Senate brain. Thoughts on Lauren Underwood in Illinois? I think she's a good lawmaker. I'm a little biased. Her little sister is a friend of mine. Someone on Instagram asked me what am I doing to bring me joy during this time of unique stress? I am playing Chrono Trigger on the internet and talking to people. I'm still in the first. I'm still in the first chunk of Andor. I know lots of exciting things have happened on the show. Spoilers don't really bother me, so it doesn't. It's not, I'm not perturbed. Hold on, my dog is barking at something. Give me a sec. All right, it's just a phantom bark. But no, so I've been busy and I haven't caught up with Andor. And my thinking right now is, I'll try to get through. I'm going to try to finish the series this upcoming week, or get as close as I can. But I know that like important things have happened in the show. And I'm excited to catch up. I mean, I've been watching Tony Gilroy's interviews about the show, and I think he really just approached this. I mean, obviously he's trying to finish a story that he started, but I do think he's approaching this less as sort of like Star Wars lore, and more sort of like he wants to tell a story about revolutions and revolutionaries. Like, I know for a fact, I mean, he's talked about this in interviews, I've talked to him about it, that he's just like really interested in revolutionary history and the type of personality that does this sort of thing, and he's using Star Wars as his vehicle for telling a story about revolutionary politics, revolutionary events, and what pushes a person to do any of this stuff, to engage in revolution, to be a Mon Mothma type, or a Luthen type, or even a Cyril type. What if John Brown had a lightsaber? What if James Madison had a lightsaber, right? Like, what if... what if Détente had a lightsaber, you know? Dessalines. What if he had a lightsaber? That'd actually be pretty cool. Yeah, this is a game I've played and beaten before many times, but it's been years since I've done it, so. King Arthur has a yellow corduroy bread hat? I think I may get that. Someone on TikTok asked me if I've always been interested in politics. I've been interested in politics as long as I can remember. Since I was a kid. So the answer to that is yes. And there's a point when I thought I might actually want to be a practitioner, you know? And there's still, I mean, I'm not yet 40. There's still time in my life to run for office should I be in a position to do so. And maybe one day I will be. And I'll give it a shot. TikTok people, I think you should share the stream so that other people join in. Jamal, what is the best book you've read about John C. Calhoun? It's going to be the biography of John C. Calhoun by Rob Elder called Calhoun. Do I think the worst people on earth kind of have a point? Read the federal bureaucracy being kind of removed from political accountability. No, I don't think they have a point because I don't think I think they're wrong about the bureaucracy being removed from federal accountability. So, okay, this is going to be a long answer. So let me tackle it in two parts. The first part is going to be kind of a theory, a constitutional theory of the federal bureaucracy. Okay, my dog keeps... There's something outside that is driving my dog insane, so we're going to go do another check. It's a it was a raccoon. That's what's driving my dog crazy. Yeah, it was Ace Combat 4 before, and I thought about doing Ace Combat 5, and then I was like, I haven't played Chrono Trigger in a while, so now it's Chrono Trigger, and it's probably just gonna be JRPGs for a while. But maybe it will be Ace Combat 5 again sometime. But anyway, okay, bureaucracy. Okay, so let's think about the federal government. Okay. In the executive branch. So the departments of the executive branch, the Justice Department, the Defense Department, everything. Those are creations of Congress, right? In 1789, Congress passes a bill establishing the Department of War, Department of the Treasury, establishes federal judiciary, but the departments of the government of the executive branch are a creation of Congress. But then they're managed by the executive branch. But then they're responsive to the courts. And one way you can think of this is that the executive branch, the departments of the executive branch, exist under a joint custody agreement. That they are not simply, they aren't simply extensions of the president, but they are entities that have responsibilities and obligations to all the branches of government, and every branch of government has some responsibility over them. Congress can, or I think it can, others do not think it can. Others disagree, but Congress, for example, has and can, I think, set the terms of office holding for an executive officer. They can say that this person does not serve at the pleasure of the president. They can only be fired for cause. The courts can shape the conduct of executive officers through their judgments. And of course, the president can give direction to those executive officers. The bureaucracy fits into this as well. The federal administrative state, which emerges in major way during the Wilson administration, and expands in a huge way during the New Deal, is a joint creation of Congress, which establishes the various agencies through statute, the executive branch, which staffs them and leads them on the day-to-day, and the courts, which basically make sure that they're obeying their legal authority and interpreting that legal authority. Um, which means in practice, the federal bureaucracy, even as it grows, is politically responsible to two elected branches: Congress, which exercises oversight power, and the executive branch, which, by virtue of it wanting to implement its program, tries to utilize and work its way through the bureaucracy. But here's the thing. So the Trump case, or the case of the people the people in the Trump administration, is that it is the job of the entire federal bureaucracy to exercise the will of the president. And they have situated the president as sort of the central figure of American government, around whom everything must revolve. And that's a claim, but it's not the case, right? The job of the federal bureaucracy is to manage, is to do the things that Congress tasks it with doing. And to the extent that the president has ideas about the things Congress says the bureaucracy should be doing, the things Congress says HHS must do, the things Congress says housing and urban development must do, to the extent that the president has agenda items, then the president can attempt to utilize those agencies to pursue his agenda items. But the mandate, and this goes back to this joint custody, the mandate that these agencies have comes as much from Congress as it does from the president. And if what the president wants is in conflict with what Congress has directed, in my view, Congress wins. It's Congress's ball. Now, what if the bureaucracy begins doing things that it's not supposed to do? Well, it's part of the job of the president to keep the bureaucracy in line with what Congress wants. What about bureaucrats making rules without congressional input? Well, Congress, in most cases, established broad mandates for these agencies, gave them a lot of discretion to do what they need to do, because the idea is that you're accumulating expertise and that it's not possible for Congress to cover every single exigency. So in my view, there's not really a political accountability problem that hasn't already been solved. Like, I'll put it a different way. I think you should think of the administrative state and the federal bureaucracy as basically something like a fourth branch of government. And it's a fourth branch of government that, again, is controlled by the other three branches in various ways. I've been using this joint custody agreement language for a minute now, because I think it actually kind of captures what is going on here, the dynamics. The other thing I would add to all of this, if I can remember where I was going with it, joint custody agreement, political accountability. Oh, I remember. The only other thing I'd add here is that if you want more political accountability, I remember. It's two things: political accountability and another thing. If what you desire is greater political accountability, and that's ultimately, I think, Congress's job, and you have to pressure Congress to do it. Because again, the notion that the entire government, the notion that the bureaucracy is essentially an extension of the president, and that the goal of the executive branch is to exercise the president's will, I think actually it's just sort of like it runs counter to our constitutional traditions. It's just like not really the case. So you want more political accountability, you're going to want to go to Congress. There was a second point. It just left my mind. And it's not about accountability. It's not about, what was that second point? Oh, it's about power. I think the irony of the Trump administration, and I've been trying to figure out a way to write about this, is that what they perceive is that the bureaucracy, what they want the bureaucracy under their control, under their total control, and they're dismantling what they can't control because they believe that a large and independent administrative state is a threat to executive power. But I'd argue that it's the reverse, that the federal bureaucracy, a large, professional, independent federal bureaucracy, is a force multiplier for executive power. But it's only a force multiplier for executive power in as much as the executive is prepared to work through the law and attempt to work their will through the constitutional system as it exists. Presidents who seek to do that can be very successful in expanding their power through the federal bureaucratic apparatus. Trump doesn't want to do that, so he wants to tear it all apart. But I think one of the ironies of this, and the casualties for him, is that it will actually diminish his ability to work his will as he'd like to. Okay. Back to TikTok. I don't know what 3 arrows is. What is 3 arrows? Can someone tell me what 3 arrows is? If I've been referenced in a video. Mostly Harmless asked, does the right to suspend habeas corpus belong to Congress or the president? I appreciate that joke, Random Sum. Okay, so hold on real quick. You guys asked me questions that required me to look up stuff real quick. All right, so Article 1, Section 9, Article 1 dealing with the powers that Congress has, Section 9 states, in Clause 2, states the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion the public safety may require it. Okay. So, the Constitution doesn't explicitly say that Congress has the sole power to suspend the writ of habeas corpus. But it's assumed, and it has been assumed, basically from the beginning. Joseph Story, the famed Supreme Court justice, assumes it in his commentaries, and the court asserts it very early on in Ex parte Bowman, 1807. Abraham Lincoln, during the Civil War, does unilaterally suspend the writ of habeas corpus, but this was met with huge opposition from Congress, and in Ex parte Merryman, the court states that the president has no such authority. And eventually, Lincoln, in response to this pushback, goes to Congress and asks for Congress to authorize a suspension of habeas corpus, and in the subsequent suspensions of habeas corpus that the Lincoln administration undertakes are done after express authorizations from Congress. So, in short, the long-standing, going back basically to the early 19th century, long-standing precedent and belief and understanding is that only Congress has the power to suspend the writ of habeas corpus. But I want to return to the language of Article 1, Section 9, which does not say, you'll note, that Congress has the power to suspend the writ. It says, the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion the public safety may require it. This, I think, should be read as basically stating that habeas corpus is inviolate, that it really cannot be suspended, and that inasmuch as it can ever be suspended, it is only in cases of rebellion or invasion. And rebellion and invasion are specific words. They're terms that can be litigated, right? The authors of the Constitution, as much as possible, want things to be judiciable. So invasion isn't just an abstract thing. Stephen Miller may say that the immigration surge of the last few years is an invasion, but this is a legal term, and by the way that the framers meant it, by the way that it's been understood, this does not constitute an invasion, and there is no rebellion. But even if there were, the only entity that can suspend the writ of habeas corpus is the Congress. Okay, so I'm aware that I guess Three Arrows is a YouTube channel, but my question is, what is the nature of the channel, and why was I referenced on it? I am also a martial law skeptic, in part because there's no martial law statute, right? I actually think the arrest of the New York mayor, Baraka, is a sign of desperation. It's an attempt to make a scene, knowing full well that they do not necessarily have the first, that they're not meeting their deportation targets, and that they're losing popularity on this, and they're hoping they can make a scene that will galvanize their supporters. I think it's likely to do the opposite. I think it's likely to backfire, and I think they can try arresting members of Congress, and I think that's going to backfire, and will cause more grief than it will help them. I think one of the key problems that these people have is that they actually cannot imagine that they have real opposition. They think all opposition is fake. I don't think they'll ever find shame, and I think our job, and I think, one of the things I'm going to try to do in my position is do as much as possible to persuade Democrats that the only thing to do is to hold these people accountable, and legally accountable, ostracize them, treat them as pariahs. Be right back. Yeah, Fluke Hawkins. I think you're right. I think you have to understand that these people do not believe that the left is real. Um, what does the end game look like? I mean, I think the end game is going to involve a genuine attempt to seize power permanently. I do not think that they're going to leave willingly. I don't. And so, whatever it looks like as things get to the end, I think it's going to have to involve like a large-scale public effort to get these people out. Okay, I'm being asked some interesting TikTok questions. Best sandwich in Seaville, tofu banh mi from Vu's Noodles. It's my personal favorite. How come you all have almost the name of a soup in your name? So B-Boy Bouillabaisse is actually a reference to the Beastie Boys medley B-Boy Bouillabaisse at the end of Paul's Boutique. Have I been to the American Shakespeare Center in Stanton? I have not been over there, although I was just in Stanton hanging out with my wife. Jamel, if Luca and Frog asked you out on a date on the same day, who would you say yes to? I would say yes to Luca, who is a cutie pie. Joining from the 757, opinion on Virginia white sauce. Virginia white sauce is delicious, and I did not realize it was only a thing basically in the 757 until I went to college. Best Federalist Papers history books. You should just read the Federalist Papers, which are still pretty accessible. Remember, they were written for a mass audience. And my favorite book kind of about any of that is Sarah Mary Blinders' book Madison's Hand, about sort of Madison's notes on the Constitutional Convention. Listen, Carolyn Levitt thinking that the Library of Congress was like a neighborhood branch library is very funny. And just a reminder that that woman is actually bad at her job. She is dumb. Trump is not going to tax the millionaires. Also, I'm sorry, you shouldn't make fun of the way people look, but Carolyn Levitt is an unfortunate looking 27-year-old. National director of the Chum Group is a reference to DJ Shadow's Introducing. That's right. Yeah, it's wild to me that Carolyn Levitt is only 27 years old. How does one get like that at 27? I'm a total hater, man. I can't be too much of a hater for, like, you know, for professional reasons, but in private, I'm a huge hater. Also, the dude she married, who is like, 2.5 times her age, looks like her dad. It's freak stuff. Oh, who do I hate more, Levitt or Vance? Definitely Vance. I think JD Vance is a degenerate. An absolutely contemptible person. Yeah, I'm a gamer. This is a TikTok question. I'm a gamer. I'm playing my favorite game actually right now. So there you go. Ultimate contemptible piece of shit showdown. Vance or Miller? Okay, so Miller is like evil, right? Like he's evil and sadistic. Vance is just sort of like, Vance believes in nothing, has no values, has no core, clearly hates himself, and will say anything. I called him a little pig man, and I mean that. He's just sort of like, he'll just gobble up the slop if it will get him one step closer to what he wants. And unfortunately, it's been successful for him, right? But he's so visibly pathetic and so visibly someone who has no self-respect that I just find him more contemptible. Like, Stephen Miller is a genuine evil person who probably can't shoot if he isn't thinking of a child being abused by ICE. Vance is a guy who correctly was like, hey, this Trump guy might be America's Hitler, and then was like, but I need a daddy, and decided to join up. And I find that more contemptible. CJ Bone. This is an old game. It's from 1994 or 5. Are people reacting to my comments about Miller and what sexually arouses him? People don't believe me when I say that I'm a hater. I'm a total hater. This is how I talk in private. uh, and someone asked me if there are people that I hate on, that are, maybe might be in my circle, in my peers. Yes, there are. Yes, there are, and I'm not going to talk about it on a public stream. But rest assured that there are people you've heard of that I may have unkind things to say about. And frankly, some of the people that I do hate on, you've heard. You listen. One of my last tweets, one of the last things I ever tweeted on the once former Twitter was just like a piece of hatery that I think made a mark. So. Part of my problem probably is that like sometimes I am a little bit too open about my contempt for certain people. I'm sure it's been an actual impediment to my career. Oh well. It's like you'd like to think that the work speaks for itself. And I think my work is good. I'm not going to pretend like I don't think I do. I think I do good work. I think I do something with the form of the column that almost no one else does. But the work, it's not just the work that speaks for itself. You have to like play nice to an extent. And I have a hard time playing nice sometimes. What book am I currently reading? I'm reading a couple things right now. I am reading The Political Thought of Frederick Douglass, which is a book from a couple years ago. I'm reading Hayek's Bastards by Quinn Slobodian, about sort of like basically the convergence of like race science and neoliberalism in the mid-century. I am reading Liberty and Coercion, Gary Gerstl's book on one of the main dichotomies of American political history, a liberty-oriented national state and a coercive subnational states. And I'm reading America Left. I'm almost done with that, which is a book about the American rights love affair with foreign dictators stretching back to the German Kaiser. And now I'm being asked how I got into photography. So my very first job out of college was for the Miller Center of Public Affairs at the University of Virginia. And I wasn't doing any like public affairs work. I was more just an assistant on staff. And part of that was taking pictures for events. And they gave me the camera. They lent it to me to let me practice taking pictures. And that is how I got into photography. It became much more serious, around after my now mother-in-law gave me a film SLR, and I started taking darkroom classes and learned how to print and all that stuff and develop film. And I have like the bookshelf you see behind me is all academic stuff, but I have a smaller bookshelf that's all my photo books of photographers that I admire, and I study them and go through them and just draw inspiration from them. I don't have a dark room. Don't have a house that big. I really liked that interview with Sojourners, which, yeah, people should check it out. It's over on Sojourners. I did an interview there. Um, I really enjoyed it. I don't get interviewed very often in that way on the page. And I don't really know, I don't often get a chance to just sort of like talk at length about, I write about these things, but sort of like my kind of like less structured but still considered thoughts on like constitutionalism and the like, or just my own views. So it was a fun interview to do. I'm glad you liked it. People should read it. And I'll say the thing I appreciated most with the interview is that he just wanted to talk about the Constitution and such. That's a lot of what I write about these days is like American political history and constitutional theory and law. And that's mainly what I've been writing about at the Times for over half a decade now. But there are still plenty of people who seem to think that I'm like some writer on racial identity, which I've never been. And lots of people just like don't think that I have thoughts on things that aren't kind of, I don't know. Sometimes people are like, hey, give me your thoughts on some race controversies. Like, I don't really have thoughts about it, but if you want to ask me, about my views of the take care clause, then I have a lot to say about that. But, such is life. Mume, my upper limit on word count is probably going to be close to 2,500 to 3,000 words. Also, I loved the interview with Samantha on neoliberalism. She's a great interlocutor, and I really enjoyed talking to her. The other thing is I do have like some like what you might call like, heterodox view. Like people ask me things like, do I think that the Constitution is pro-slavery? And I don't. Like I think that's I think the most you can say about the Constitution in its original form was that it was like indifferent to slavery, which isn't much better. But this popular notion that like that there's all that the that, for example, the Electoral College was created to protect slave owners. Like, I just don't think that's correct. But no one really wants to delve into those parts of my thinking. So, I don't know. Who cares? I don't know if I'd say that. Capitalism didn't really exist as you would understand, as we would understand it in 1787. It defers to property, but property and capitalism aren't the same thing. They aren't synonyms. I've never played Shining Force, so we're back at TikTok right now. Any photography book recommendations? Let me look over at my shelf. Actually, my favorite photography book is Modern Color by Fred Herzog. Herzog was a mid-century, 1950s, 1960s, were his heydays, color photographer in Vancouver, British Columbia. And he was one of the first photographers to shoot color for like art, right? Color films that are exhibited in galleries. He uses Kodachrome, and it's both a fascinating glimpse into Vancouver in like the 1950s and 60s, but he's also just like an amazing photographer. So Modern Color by Fred Herzog. Love that book. Do I think there are any 8th Amendment issues with the Seacott kidnappings? Probably. I think there are 5th Amendment issues. If there are 14th Amendment issues. I think we should think of the Seacott kidnappings as being analogous to the Fugitive Slave Act. And opponents of the Fugitive Slave Act pointed out, I think correctly, that the act violated basic guarantees of due process. Why didn't I become a lawyer? Because I don't actually like... I mean, okay, I think... And not that I don't like school, it's that I had no patience to be in school for another 3 years. So, here I am. Okay, so there are two things people asked in the Twitch that I would get to, but a few more things from the TikTok. First, my favorite Spielberg at the moment is probably it's Lincoln. It's Lincoln. The culture of the team at New York Times Opinion, which is the section I work in, it's a lot of camaraderie in the office. Now, I'll say not everyone goes into the office. I work remotely, but I try to go into the office pretty as regularly as I can. Okay. I got some long thoughts here. So Kilimaro says Lincoln didn't want to abolish in 1860, so in that sense it worked. The secessionists forced to fight Lincoln wasn't going to start, and they lost. So this is like yes and no. So it's true. Lincoln in 1860, not an abolitionist. Anti-slavery, not an abolitionist. And it's really important to understand the varieties of anti-slavery belief. Although I need to emphasize, Lincoln was a sincere opponent of slavery, not a racial egalitarian, not an abolitionist. Although, I'll say this about Lincoln, although he was not a racial egalitarian and had many of the racial attitudes of a man of his station at the time, he also wasn't an ideological racist like Stephen Douglas was, right? Like, he wasn't the kind of guy who was gonna like spit in the face of a black person, which it seems like a low bar, but it's meaningful that Lincoln invites Frederick Douglass and other black activists into the White House for discussions. It's meaningful that Lincoln gives a serious hearing to and eventually agrees on allowing free black men to serve in the Union Army. It's significant that in his last speech before his assassination, Lincoln was voicing his support for provisional right to vote for black men. So the thing about Lincoln that I find admirable is his capacity to grow and change, and right up to the end of his life, he was demonstrating that. Okay, the second thing. The thing about Lincoln during the secession crisis is that although he was not angling for a war, right? He wanted to avoid a war. The thing, and this is something that Douglas observes at the time as well, the thing about Lincoln is that he also wasn't going to back down. And he did not accept that secession was a thing that could happen. His view was that the Union was basically eternal and that the states are products of the Union and not vice versa. And that he simply was not going to back down if the secessionists opened fire. And so, no, he wasn't going to start it, but I think it's important to not obscure the extent to which Lincoln was an ironclad Unionist, and his view is basically that if the secessionists want to make this a war, he was going to fight it, and he was going to win it. I think there's a lot of we don't have to get into religion or stuff here, but I genuinely think that there is providence in the fact that of the people that could have been president of the United States in 1861, we got basically the one guy who was capable of seeing this through. The good Douglas, Frederick Douglass. And as for Dred Scott, yes, one of the worst decisions ever written. A bad reading of the history, a bad reading of the law. And I wrote this last year, but an example of the court acting politically, because there is a path for Tawney to do a very narrow decision, a decision that maybe rejected Dred Scott's claims, but that narrowly ruled on the merits and did nothing else. But Tawney got in his mind, not unlike a certain John Roberts, that he was going to settle the question for good, that he was going to write an opinion for the ages, to quote Brett Kavanaugh, and that got us Dred Scott, and it was disaster. I mean, ultimately, the Dred Scott decision. The Dred Scott decision. What the Dred Scott decision did was establish that there was hereditary caste in the United States, right, and that there were some people who would always be subordinate, no matter what. The 14th Amendment was ratified to strip that from the Constitution. Charles Sumner said so explicitly. We're going to strip color castes from this nation, and people like Stephen Miller and Donald Trump and Kristi Noem and J.D. Vance, what they ultimately want is Roger Taney's America. They want Dred Scott America back. Basically, I think Roberts only escapes permanent notoriety if the U.S. doesn't fall into a civil war. And if it does, then I think Roberts gets a bunch of the blame. Okay, I'm gonna fight Azalea here. Stand up for the apes. There we go. Sorry, just realized ice better than lightning for this one. Um, but I don't have a favorite Superman story. If the Blank Check Boys want to have me on to redo Amistad, I'd be happy to do it because it is sort of a. I think the movie is very flawed, but the movie is an intersection of my various interests, right? Sort of 19th century American legal history, the transatlantic slave trade, and John Quincy Adams. So I'd be happy to join them to talk Amistad. They joke and they worry that they only have me on for serious stuff, but I'm happy to be their guest for serious stuff, for history stuff, because I like talking about that stuff. Um, Amistad, God, such a flawed film. A movie that's still very much made in that era where it's like the white protagonists of these sorts of stories are the ones that get that are the focus. I mean, that are the protagonists. But I do think its depiction of the Middle Passage is like genuinely harrowing, and it does have an incredibly stacked cast. I mean, my biggest problem with Amistad story wise is that it presents the case as a as some monumental event in the history of anti-slavery when it really was kind of a curiosity that didn't really have any meaningful impact on the progression of things. I don't think that we're noticeably closer to civil war. That's my immediate thought, but you have to get back to me on that. I have to think about that more. No, SCOTUS did not adjudicate that Trump hadn't committed insurrection. This is a TikTok question. SCOTUS simply said that the states that what Trump v. Anderson stated was that the states cannot unilaterally decide that the president has committed insurrection such that they violated Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, that Congress has to pass a law kind of stating it. So let's do some here. Let's do some Constitution reading real quick. Where's my pocket Constitution? In here somewhere. Oh, there it is. Pocket Constitution. So, no, that's my passport. It looks just like my pocket Constitution. Where the hell is my pocket? Oh, there it is. Pocket Constitution. Okay. So, Section 3 states no person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. Congress may by a vote of 2/3 of each house remove such disability. So, what Section 3 of the 14th Amendment says is it puts forth a prohibition that's essentially a qualification in the same way that the Constitution says you have to be 35 to be president. The Constitution says you can't have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof, and be an officer under the Constitution. This is so straightforward that one of the initial attacks against the attempt to disqualify Trump was to argue that the president wasn't an officer because the president isn't listed here. What the court did to get around this is to say, and then to emphasize this fact, that final sentence, but Congress may by a vote of 2/3 of each house remove such disability, is a statement that this is just a general qualification that can only be disabled by an affirmative vote of Congress. But absent an affirmative vote of Congress, this is the standard. And what the Supreme Court did was flip this and say, well, Congress has to pass something stating that it's a disability, stating that it's a requirement. But if Congress does not pass a bill saying this person is an insurrectionist, therefore they're subject to Section 3, then it's not operative. So the court essentially rewrote Section 3 to let Donald Trump run for president. No, there's no need for it. Under Section 3 as written, there is no need for enabling legislation. And there's a reason for that, because Section 3 was written under the fear that Democrats would win Congress and then begin basically sort of like putting insurrectionists back in office. And so why would you have enabling legislation if what you're afraid of is some sort of affirmative action from Democrats? No, that makes no sense. Wait, 50th anniversary steelbook of what? Tell me. What movie? Oh, Jaws. All right. The South African immigrant story is insane, and I might write a column about sort of like South Africa as like, or apartheid South Africa as like a right wing cause celebre, and has been for decades. We'll have to listen to some stuff, read some stuff to do it, but I think it's worth writing. And the hat says King Arthur Baking. Oh, I was going to look at something real quick. Got him. Oh, thank you, Ricky. Tanukichi, I'm gonna play Chrono Cross after I finish this. That's the next game on the docket. Although maybe I will play Secret of Mana. I don't know. Should I play Secret of Mana? I'm playing this on an emulator. Oh, I played Golden Sun. Is there a version of Secret of Mana that is best, or should I just go with the Super Nintendo version? I played Final Fantasy VI so many times. And I would stream 6, but it's not I can't find the pixel remaster to play on I guess I could play the Game Boy Advance version of 6 on here. But I want to play the pixel remaster because I like the I like some of the creature comforts. What is Shining Force 4? What system is that on? What did you find less good about the Final Fantasy VI pixel remaster? Because if you thought it was less good, then I might stream the Game Boy Advance version. Although most likely the next game here is going to be Chrono Cross. You know what Final Fantasy I think is terrible? 2. I tried to play 2, really didn't enjoy it. Really did not like it. Like Final Fantasy 1 is, it's very simple, and it has its issues, but I actually enjoyed the pixel remaster quite a bit. But 2, I just was like, this is not good. I think this is the best music in the game, by the way. The last time I played Final Fantasy 3 was when they did that 3D remake for Nintendo DS like 20 years ago. Um, Once I knock out Dragon Warrior 3 on my Switch, I might try the 3 pixel remaster, the Final Fantasy 3 pixel remaster. It's been a long time since I played 4. I played 5 years ago. I went like 2. I'm giving up. 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm gonna try to make my way through, but I gotta knock out Dragon Warrior first. Uh, I love Final Fantasy X. Um, but I don't know when I'm gonna get the Switch to. I haven't played Final Fantasy VIII since I was like a kid, so I do want to play. There's the remaster, and I would like to play that. Um, and I'm a huge defender of Final Fantasy 12. I think it's a great game. I played Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 and Chains of Memory, and that's where I kind of stopped with Kingdom Hearts. I guess people don't like Final Fantasy 12 that much, but I think it's great. And the whatchamacallit, the Zodiac Age version fixes any problems that the game had before. I remember the first time I played it, I actually like got all the way to like the final sequence and then just like stopped playing and then picked it up later. Because the game, I mean, like honestly, the final sequence is like it's easy. First of all, it's not particularly difficult, and most of the fun of the game is just sort of like doing the missions, doing the hunts, and crafting powerful weapons and such. Oh, wrong one. What's going on over at TikTok? Did someone ask what game this is? This is a Chrono Trigger. I have not seen Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. The only Final Fantasy movie I've ever seen is whatchamacallit, Spirits Within. Which my inner contrarian wants to rewatch it and make like a case that, oh, this is actually good, but I have a feeling it's as bad as I remember it being, and that I'll have a tough time uh, justifying that take. I do not think you're a bad gamer if you never got into Final Fantasy. I saw the Spirits Within in theaters too, and I have a distinct memory because I was like maybe 13, 12, and I was seeing it with some friends, and just to be goofy, I put an M&M in my nose, tried to like shoot it at a friend, but I inhaled, and the M&M sort of like went went into my mouth through my nose. It was a horrible experience. I wouldn't call Pritzker the front runner, but he's definitely a runner. You know, he's definitely in the mix. Sorry, I've been quiet, guys. I'm just playing the game. Charlie, that's right, and I think it's like the big. I think it's like it's a sign of how I think you're political savvy. If you in December were like Trump's popular now, people love him, and we have to get with the program. If you thought that, then you're a fucking idiot, and you have no juice. Like Trump's dip in popularity, most predictable thing in the world. Yeah, Victor, this is on Twitch, so you can check this out on Twitch. I love Shala's theme. I find the entire. I mean, I think this is my favorite video game for many reasons. Top of the list is it just has an incredible story, and I do think that the Shala Janice, their mother losing her mind because of poisoned by power. Um, I find that all very tragic and sad. Also, the fact that the machine, their energy machine, is called the Mammon Machine, is just really on the nose, writers, but it works. I have seen Sinners. Would you like my Sinners thoughts? It's good. Okay. This boss is actually not too difficult. All you have to do is, you can't use physical attacks. Fuck. Oh, okay. The counterattacks don't count. Alright, that's right. Elemental attacks is how to go with this guy. Shit. There it goes. Damn it. I almost had him too. The fight is winnable, but this will happen regardless of whether you win or lose. All right, this is it from me. Thanks for joining me on the stream as always. Talk to you guys later. And yeah.